today's agenda is to just give a demo session on how does the data analysis or data science gets applied on a particular data. So the idea is we will take up a data, and it's not going to be a theory session where I will have PPTs and all. We are going to just get some hands-on, and then we will take up a data. We will see how as a data analyst or how as a data scientist I will be approaching this particular data set, and then see what can be done in this particular data set, and we will pick up few problem statements like we'll be taking up text data, and then we will see how do we analyze the text data, and then especially it's Twitter data, so we will see how do we do a hashtag analysis, and then how do we typically handle text data. So it's not going to be a basic one, or it's not going to be too advanced, wherein I'm just going to just take up approach where we take up a data, just slowly walk through the data a little bit and get insights from the data. And for this you don't need any background. You don't need to have Python background, or you don't need to have data science background. While I'm typing in the code, definitely I'll be walking you through what I'm doing, and then the syntaxes and all, you don't have to worry about it. Only if you can focus on the results, that should be good enough. And of course the logic, definitely I'll be explaining what I'm doing, and then what is the approach that I'm taking, and then I will type in the codes and all. So you don't have to focus on the syntax part. If you know Python already, that is well and good. Even if you do not know, it's not very. It's just a demo session that we are planning for today, just to give a sense of how a particular data scientist or data analyst will take up a data set and then start analyzing the data. So that is the agenda that I've kept for this. So I'll be taking it for next another 1 hour, and then we can have some discussion. If you have any queries or any doubts or any feedbacks or something, you can have a discussion towards the end. So that is the agenda. So let's get started. As I said, what we are going to do is we are going to take up a data set, and this data set is available in a particular link, and I will give my data set link. It is there in my GitHub repository. I will post this link in the notebook itself. You will have access to this particular data set. So let's take up a data set and first look at this data and see what can we do with this data. Yep. And I'm going to start typing in Google Colab. Google Colab is a place where you can type in any Python code, or it's just like Jupyter Notebook that you might have used in your local machines. So you can start typing in the codes, and then you can turn on internet and then read any data if it is available in online directly into Google Colab. So you don't have to install anything in your local machine. You can directly, if you have a Google account, you can directly open Google Colab and start typing in any data science code. So this supports packages like matplotlib, and it supports packages like pandas, numpy, and then scikit-learn. Pretty much most of the libraries that are used from a data science perspective, Google Colab supports it. And also this platform also provides 5 GB GPU support. So if you're working in any deep learning algorithms and you want to try out something, you can use this Google Colab and turn on the GPU so that your code runs faster. But it's easy to share and do any collaborative work. So I'm just using this so that towards the end of the session, I'll also share the link to this notebook, and if you want to try offline, you can try it out. So let's name this notebook as data science session. I'm going to read this data set. So in order to read a data set, let's say it's a CSV file. It's a CSV file. In order to read this data set, we have a library called pandas in Python, wherein you can read data from a CSV file or Excel file or JSON file, or even if it is in a database table, you can read it using this library called pandas. And this is how we import a library in Python. And like pandas, there are a lot of other libraries to deal with data, but pandas is one that is widely used, and pretty much anyone who starts their journey in data science, definitely they will encounter this package called pandas. And you, in fact, if you can go to the documentation of this particular library called pandas, whereas you will see a lot of examples how to use this particular data set, how to use this particular library. And if you have text data, or if you have missing values, or you want to do some visualization, so anything are in and around data wrangling you want to do, you can try using this library called pandas, and that is what I've done. So I'm importing pandas, and this package is already there in Google Colab. So let's read this data first and then see what is the problem statement that we are trying to approach. So let me call this data as tweets. It has a function called pd.read_csv. I'm going to read it from a URL. So this URL, it is having the data set, this data set, and I'm going to read this data set directly from the URL. So you don't have to download it locally and then read it from your local machine. Since it's a online Jupyter notebook that we are reading, you can just directly read it from any URL, and this URL you just have to pass it as a variable here. And let's first look at this data set, understand it a little bit, and see what we are going to do with this data set. So this data set is about tweets from a particular user profile. So the user here is our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. So this data set, I scraped it a few years back. It has close to 3000 rows. In fact, we can get to see how many rows we have. So this is tweets.shape, will tell you how many rows and columns we have. So we have close to 3220 rows and 14 columns here, and every row is a tweet. So for example, if you check, this is a particular tweet with the tweet ID, and this particular tweet has 1406 retweets at the time of scraping, and 4000 likes again at the time of scraping. And when it was tweeted around 2017 Jan 31st, this particular tweet has been tweeted. What is the tweet message? The text columns give you what is the tweet message, and then with what language it has detected. Twitter has detected, and retweeted. What is the followers count? What is the friends count? How many people this user is following at the time of scraping again? How many hashtags are there in this particular tweet? What is the description about the user? So Prime Minister of India. Location, this is profile location, not tweet location, and background image of the particular user, and the source from which it is tweeted. So you will have sources like Twitter web client, and maybe from a BlackBerry device or Android device like that, or from iPhone. So from which source it is tweeted. So you will have these information about tweet. If you want to scrape tweets from any user, let's say a celebrity or a politician, or your own tweets, or from any other competitor or your own company, there is a library in Python called as TweetPy. This library helps you to download tweets. So it provides a wrapper around Twitter API. You have to create a developer account in Twitter in order to download tweets. And using this library, you can go through the docs later on. Using this library, I've scraped this data set a few years back. So around 3000 tweets we have. And then I'm going to explain what are we planning to do with this particular data set. Typically, when we get a data set, what do we do? So let's say I have this tweets data set with me, and it has various type of columns. So I have a text column which is having the tweet message. I have created at the date in which it is tweeted. I have source, I have retweets, I have likes, so many other columns, location column, many other columns I have. What we typically do when we get a data set, not for tweets alone, irrespective, you take it from a banking domain, you take it from a media domain, you take it from a HR data, you take any data which is the structured format. The approach that we follow is first define the data types. Usually in statistics, you define data types to be like qualitative, quantitative, but from a data science perspective, we typically divide our data into multiple types of columns. For example, so you will have numerical columns, usually mostly KPIs. key point indicators like sales column, or it could be volume, or it could be marks, it could be growth. Typically these will be your KPIs, and there will be categorical columns or groups column like state, product name or product category, and then district, department and all. Then you will have date columns created at issue created date, issue closed date, comment received date, or date of birth, or you will also have registration date, etc. and all, user signed in dates and all. You might have text columns, for example reviews, tweets like this what we are looking at now, or you will also have description about a particular product, comments from users, you will have description about users, etc. and also any column which has text data inside. And then geographical columns and few other miscellaneous columns like phone numbers, email IDs, and then ID columns like Twitter ID column that we have. The reason why you need to divide or identify what data type each of your column belongs to is very critical in data science, because if you have numerical column, we used to do something called as distribution analysis. If you have categorical column, we used to do not like always, but used to start with frequency analysis. So when you have date column, we used to perform trending analysis. And when you have text column, of course, you can start with text analytics. There is various text analytics techniques that are available. If you have geographical column, location analysis, demographic analysis, etc. And the charts that you pick, the statistical analysis that you pick, all depends on what type of columns you have. If you want to do distribution analysis, we typically use box plot, histograms, etc. If you are planning to use frequency analysis, bar chart, stacked bars, tree map, etc. all those comes into picture. If you are planning to do trending analysis, you will have line chart, you will have calendar map, your Gantt chart, etc. and all will come into picture here. When you have text analytics, you have a lot of visualizations for text analytics. For example, word clouds is one, and there are a few more that usually comes in when you have text data. When you have location analysis, you can use maps, and within maps there is like chlorophyll maps and cartograms, etc. and all that comes into picture. So any statistical analysis that you do depends on what data type you have. Any visualization technique or any chart that you want to pick depends on what data type you have, and pretty much whatever you do will be in and around what data types you have. For example, the tweets data set that we have, the text column, the tweets exact tweet column, it's a text column here. Created at is a date column. Source is a categorical column. Retweets is a numerical column. Likes again is a numerical column. I can go ahead and list all the other columns and then check what kind of, for example, if you have URL, it's a miscellaneous columns. You can extract some information from URL, convert it into a numeric or categorical column again. Directly URL columns are not helpful while doing data analysis. So moment you have these data types defined for each column, then it's pretty much easy. What we do, we start with univariate analysis. That is, we take up each column and describe it in short, very few attributes. For example, if I have to take the tweets likes column, let's say, or retweets column. So I have a retweets column. This is a column which tells, I think it is retweets underscore count. So this is a numerical column has how many retweets for each of the tweet. So close to 3220 tweets we have. Now if I want to summarize this numerical column, I can just say dot describe, and this gives me what is the average tweets, which is around 2000, what is the minimum number of tweets, which is 125, maximum number of tweets for a particular tweet is around 21,000. We can go ahead and see why so much of retweets for that particular tweet, what it contains, or which hashtag it contains, or what is the information in that particular tweet and all. So various other quartile information, first quartile, second quartile, third quartile. So of course we used to go through a lot of statistical analysis to understand what are these numbers are all. So the minimum ones at least like minimum standard deviation, average standard deviation, minimum value, and the maximum value. Likewise, any column that you pick, let's say I want to pick a categorical column, source column. This column is categorical column, so it doesn't make sense to look at minimum or maximum value. So I look at how many unique values are there in this particular source column. So source column contains 6 unique values. What are those? We can check it out quickly. So you can just say dot unique, and it says Twitter web client, Twitter iPhone, Twitter for BlackBerry, and what are the other types of sources. You will get it listed here. So there are totally 6 unique sources from which the tweets are made, among which Twitter web client seems to be most often. So from this particular source, most of the tweets are coming. How many such tweets? Close to 1965 tweets out of 3220 is coming from this particular Twitter web client. So this particular source is being used a lot when it comes to tweet from this particular user. So for a numerical column, I have distribution statistics. For a categorical column, I have some frequency statistics. For example, I can get to know how many tweets from each of the source. So Twitter web client is around 1965. From iPhone, around 771 tweets are there. From BlackBerry, around 424 tweets. So depending on which type of column I have, the analysis get changed. So now I'm getting a little bit sense about what is this particular data set is all about. Slowly we can extend this to other types of data types as well. For example, we have date column, created at. Created at, usually it will be a text column initially. We can convert it into a proper date column, like how we do it in Excel. We convert it into a proper date column by defining what is the format it is and all. So likewise, even in pandas, we can convert it into a date time column. So you don't have to worry about the syntax as of now. So it's a way to tell what is the format in which we have the date information. So we have year, we have -month, -day, space hour, space minute, colon seconds. So this is the format in which I have the data in the created at column. Now this is a date column. So if I say dot describe, dot describe on a date column tells me that the first date is in which the tweet is available in this particular data is from 2016 March 9th till 2017 Jan 31st. So close to 9 or 10 months records I have, and within this time frame we have close to 3220 tweets from this particular profile. So moment you take up a data set, the first step is to define what are the data types you have in each of the column. There are a lot of softwares which automatically recognizes what visuals to be drawn, and again it all depends upon what data type you have. So it plays a crucial role for a data scientist or a data analyst in what kind of analysis we pick and what kind of chart do we plot and all. So these are all something basics that we typically do on a structured data. So I took a categorical column, I took a numerical column, and also took a date column to just understand what is the minimum and maximum date in it. But what about when you have text columns? What about when you have text columns like tweets column that we have here? So the text column It is not numerical, it is not categorical, it is not date, it's just a bunch of words in each of the row. How do we summarize this? So this is the first starting point for any text analytics. Like moment you have bunch of words with you, what do? So typically we start with something called as a word cloud, wherein what we do is we take up each of the word, calculates its frequency, and then let's take the word, let's take India, repeats around 1000 times in this particular Twitter profile. And then there is a word, let's say president, which repeats around 800 times. So we identify individual words. And typically how do you identify words? By just using space between the characters. You identify words and then see what is the frequency of each of the word, and then plot this as a chart called as word cloud. So what we do in word cloud is we plot each of the word as text, and the size of the word is determined by the frequency. For example, India being the largest or high frequent word here, the size of India will be in a very large font, followed by president, where the size will not be as big as India, and then you might see words like next word with a smaller font. So the font size defines or projects what is the frequency of a particular word. So what will happen is I will pull out maybe top 100 or top 200 words, and then I visualize it in terms of word cloud. So how do we do that in Python? So we don't have to again do this manually. We can easily do it through packages in Python. So we have a package called word cloud. And this particular plot will help us to visualize this text data very quickly. So let me plot this. All I have to do is just pass on the text column that I have as a single string. So I'm just passing the text column. I'm not doing anything, just passing this single column as a single string. So there are like a lot of sentences, right? I combine all those sentences into a single sentence, and then using word cloud to generate a plot that we discussed, and we can easily visualize it. So what it does, automatically identifies all the words that are available in this particular Twitter data, and then tells me what are those words which are very frequently appearing. In fact, if you want, you can change the background color so that it's a bit easy to read it. And of course you can control the size and all the parameters. So the word HTTPS, there is a lot of URLs in this particular tweet messages, so you can get rid of these words. In fact, you can specify what are the stop words that you need. And the word like India, PMO India, today, nation, people, Man Ki Baat, progress, and government, and then also development. So these are the words which are very frequently used. The word visit, and then US, and then talks about multiple apps, talks about government and congratulation messages, mostly progress messages, most of them are development messages. So these are the, and if of course when we clean the data, we can get rid of these words like HTTPS, Go, AMP and all, and then we can visualize the remaining words which are very useful. So these are the kind of words which are very frequently used in this particular Twitter data. So for a categorical column, we did frequency analysis on each of the category and identified which category has maximum number of frequency. On a numerical column, we were doing your distribution analysis, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, average values and all. On a date column, we used to look at what is the first date and last date to understand what is the duration in which we have the data. And on the text column, this is one of the analysis that we do. And of course, there is a lot of other different ways in which we visualize the text column. So let's say I want to do deep dive into this particular text column, and then I want to know what is the frequency of each of the word. And instead of looking at the word alone, what I want to do is I want to identify how many hashtags are there and also count their frequencies, which you can repeat it for normal words as well. So how do you have hashtags in tweets? So let's say you have a text column, a lot of text are there. So let's take some text randomly. I'm taking the text in the first row. So it says the president's address wonderfully, blah blah blah, and then you have hashtag transforming India. Then let me take up some other tweet randomly. This is about President Rashtriya Bhavan and all, but there is no tweet or hashtag inside this. So there are tweets which will have some hashtags. So here you have President Mukherjee, and there will be tweets in which you don't have hashtags. The idea here is I'm going to pull out all the hashtags that we have and then see what is the most frequently used hashtags during this duration, 6 or 9 months. And typically we used to do deep dive and all, how this hashtag is trending, all those we used to do. As of now, we are just planning to just see what are the different hashtags and what is the frequency of each of these hashtags that we have, for which I'm going to loop through each of the word or each of the tweet, collect all the hashtags. So initially the hashtag will be an empty list. As I encounter a hashtag while looping through each of the tweet, I will append it to this particular list called hashtag, so that towards the end I will know how many hashtags are there, what is the frequency and all. So let me loop through each of the tweet. So for tweet and tweets text, I'm looping through each of the tweet message, and then I'm going to check the individual words in it. I'm going to split the tweet. I'm going to split the tweet by space so that I will have individual words. So let me show it for first two or 5 tweets. So you see, this is the first tweet, the president's address wonderfully, and this is the second tweet. So you see, each tweet now we have the individual words in it. How did we get it? We just divided the tweet by splitting it into space. And let me convert everything into lowercase so that it's easy to do the analysis. Now I'm going to loop through each of the word and then get only the hashtag, those words which are starting with hash symbol. So I will take a word for word in words. I loop through each of the words, check if word starts with hash. If it starts with hash, I will take up that word, otherwise I will drop the word, and then I add it to my hashtags list. So what happens is I'm looping through each of the tweet, extracting the words by dividing it with the split command, and then checking whether the word starts with hash. If it starts with hash, I'm collecting, and then together I'm attaching it to hashtags list. So this hashtags list will have all the hashtags that we have. So for first 5 tweets, we have only one hashtag called transforming India. When you look through all the tweet messages, you see different hashtags that are emerging out from all these tweet messages. We have close to 3,200 tweets, right? So from all these, we have a very large collection of hashtags that we have. So what I'm going to do is identify frequency of each of these hashtags. So I will convert it into a parameter called series, pass on this, and use a frequency function called value counts, which will identify all unique hashtags along with the frequency, and then list down the top 10 or 20 hashtags that we have. So you can define. So I'm converting it into a series, doing a frequency analysis on each of the hashtag. We have extracted the hashtag till here, but we don't have the frequency. So that part we are doing it here. Dot value counts as a function in pandas, which will do frequency for each of the category that we have, or each of the unique value that we have. And then it will list down the top ones. So you see the top tweet is Triyangayatra with 74 as a frequency. Then we have Man Ki Baat. So we have two versions of Sandesh to Soldiers, one without the dot and one with dot. So we used to clean the data before we use it. We remove all the non-alphabets and then remove any special characters if you have, so that you have a cleaned data. So we used to do it before doing the analysis. So we can quickly remove all the non-alphabets and then redo the analysis. Yeah, we have to retain the hashtag side. The hashtag gets changed as well. So now you see the two versions of Sandesh to Soldiers gets clubbed together, and then we have Sandesh to Soldiers coming on top with 105 as a frequency, and we have Man Ki Baat, Triyangayatra transforming. So basic text cleaning I've done. Anything that is not an alphabet and not a space and not a hashtag, I'm removing it and redoing the analysis. So you see a lot of hashtags that are coming out. So you can just use a simple bar chart to plot this visual. So you will have the top one coming in the bottom. So if you want, you can reverse it. So you'll have Sandesh to Soldiers coming on top and Man Ki Baat coming as a second one. So you can right click and save this as an image and put it in your presentations if you want, or just show it in the Jupyter notebook itself. So like this, you can repeat it for individual words as well, and then you can, or if you have any other pattern, you have any other keyword from which you want to do the search, you can try doing it as well. So moment you have a text data, first we start with the word cloud, understand at a high level how this particular text column is having different words, and then slowly deep dive into the text data based on the domain. So here it is Twitter data, so I used hashtag. You can also use how many users are there, meaning what kind of users are tagged in this particular Twitter data. So instead of using hash, I can use @ symbol. I should get to know how many users are tagged. For example, the users that are typically tagged is PMO India, @Narendra Modi, me, MEA India, and then Rashtriya Bhavan, BJP India. So these are the Twitter account, other Twitter account @ISRO. So these are the Sushma Swaraj, etc. Other Twitter users whom our Honorable Prime Minister is tagging. So you can, based on the domain, you can filter the data and then redo the analysis either for individual words or individual Twitter hashtags or individual accounts like users informations, etc. and all. So what I've done here is very basic to start with only frequency counts and then maybe doing some hashtag analysis. For example, you can also check for a particular hashtag how it is trending. Let's say I have a hashtag My Clean India. So let's say I have a hashtag My Clean India. So it could be any hashtag. I will check if a hashtag is available in a particular tweet or not, and then I can do a trending of hashtags, how this particular hashtag is trending. Hashtag trending analysis. So slowly you can deep dive in. I'll just check whether each tweet contains a hashtag or not. One, if the tweet contains. So let's take My Clean India. Whether this tweet is available in each, whether this hashtag is available in each tweet or not, we can check it out. And then we can just extract a month from the date column. So we have created ad .dt.month, extract the month, and then I can say tweets dot group by. I'll show the result, then it will become easier to understand. Group by month, and then use the hashtag column to just do a summation. So I'll get to see for each month, or I can extract year underscore month. That will be easier, so that I'll have along with the year, not just month. I'll also have year with me. So for each month, how this particular hashtag is trending, we can very easily visualize it. So you see, My Clean India is used a lot in 2016 October, around 10 times in that particular month. Rest of the month, decent number of usage. Whereas any other particular, for example, Yoga Day could be seasonal. On a particular month, it will be there, might not be there for remaining months. So you see, on a particular day, which is Yoga Day, you will see around 30 or 60 tweets on that particular month. Remaining months, you don't have any count. So for any tweet that you pick, you can very easily Swachh Bharat. Likewise, you can check out how is Swachh Bharat trending. There is like multiple versions of Swachh Bharat here. I'm just picking one of it. So you can see for this version of Swachh Bharat, there is multiple versions of Swachh Bharat. So for this particular version of Swachh Bharat, you see it's used in a particular month, but not across other months. Maybe that is Swachh Bharat Day or something. So certain hashtags could be seasonal, others could be something that you can use it across multiple months. So you can cross check how a particular tweet is trending. So what we did earlier is, what is the most used hashtags in those 10 months of duration, whereas now we are deep diving into one of the hashtag and then checking how this hashtag is trending across multiple months. So you are using a date column along with the text column. So moment you have a date column and the text column, so you have a date column, you can do trending analysis, and we use line chart to it. Whenever you have a categorical column, we go with the bar chart to express the frequency of each of the category. So the type of chart that you pick or type of analysis that you pick, it primarily depends on what kind of variables that you pick, and then that decides what visualization to pick or what analysis to do as well. So likewise, we can keep rolling in and identify word-wise analysis, do text classification, sentiment analysis, a lot we can do. So here I'm just giving you a preview of how we typically start with the text data. Cool then, so we'll wind up here. Thanks a lot guys for joining.